Hey everybody, I thought I would do a quick video about knitting needles to show you the different types of needles and some of the different materials that they're made of. You can find links on the blog sapphiresandpearls.com so you can check out some of the different brands that are available. Some of them are cheap, some of them are expensive. There really is no wrong needle to use. You should just use whatever feels the most comfortable for you and whatever you like. I'm going to start off here with some straight needles or single pointed needles. They come in, like I said, all different sizes from teeny tiny to medium size to really big. These that I have here are plastic. They are size 50 needles. Here's another pair of plastic needles. You can get needles that are made out of wood. Here are some rosewood needles, and these actually, if you can see there, have mother of pearl on top of them. And that was the main reason that I bought these actually. I like mother of pearl. It's not necessary to have such embellished needles. And these here are made of glass. And they have this really pretty ball on the end of them. I bought these online off of eBay several years ago. And I went back maybe a year after I got these to get some more, and I could not find the seller that I had purchased these from. I don't really use these that often. I'm just afraid that I'm going to break them. So mostly these just sit around and I take them out every once in a while to look at them. So you can even get glass knitting needles. These are Susan Bates acrylic needles. I think they're called the Crystal Lights, and I really don't care for these. They have a little too much grab for me. The yarn doesn't really slide as quickly as I'd like it to, but these are fairly inexpensive needles. These are Susan Bates needles as well. These are aluminum, and they are called Silvalume needles. They're a little bit more polished and smooth than regular aluminum needles. Here are some Susan Bates plain old aluminum needles. Again, these are all fairly inexpensive needles. And here are some boy knitting needles. These are just aluminum needles, and these aren't quite as polished as some of the boy needles that you can get. They have a little more grab to them. They hold on to the yarn a little bit. This is another set of boy needles. These are a little more polished than these ones here that I just showed you. They're a little smoother. And here is another set of aluminum needles. These are boy needles. These are pretty smooth as well. And you can see they're a good bit longer than the other needles that I was showing you. So those are straight needles. Here we have some double pointed needles. Double pointed needles are made out of the same materials as the straights. You can get plastic, acrylic, aluminum, bamboo, and wooden double pointed needles. Double pointed needles come in different lengths and sizes, just like the straight needles. These that I have here are sock needles. These are Susan Bates aluminum needles, and they're pretty small. You don't have to use double pointed needles for knitting in the round. You can use them for knitting flat as well, or making I-cords. So these are pretty small. I don't think I've ever used them actually. Next we have these Clover bamboo needles, and you've probably seen all of these brands in like Joann's or Michael's. They typically carry the Susan Bates and Clover and Boy needles. Your local yarn store might carry some or all of those brands as well, but they do have a bigger selection than your generic craft store. So again, these are bamboo needles. Here are some Susan Bates Silva-Loom double pointed needles. And these here are actually square knitting needles. These are from Collage, and there are other brands that make square knitting needles. Knitter's Pride is one of them. I believe their square needles are called Cubics. But the square needles are supposed to be a little easier on your hands, and they are supposed to make more uniform stitches. So those are double pointed needles. So next up are the circular needles. Again, you can get them in bamboo, aluminum. Some needles, like the Addi Turbos, are nickel plated, so they're really smooth and the yarn slides really well over them. One thing about these circular needles is the cords. Some of them are really pliable and some of them are pretty stiff. So depending on your tastes, you may or may not want to choose circular needles based on what type of cord they have. This circular needle that I have here, this is a wooden needle, and you can see that the cord on this is really flexible. I don't know if you can hear that squeaking. That's because it's cheap plastic, and I actually got these things at Joann's for 99 cents. And before, when I was talking about the price of needles, how there really is no right or wrong needle, I actually would say that this is a wrong needle. I would not recommend something this cheap to anybody. I used them once and haven't really touched them again. I had a horrible time trying to slide my yarn over this plastic tubing. I mean, these really are pretty much just garbage. Definitely would not recommend something this cheap. These are the Clover bamboo needles, which are a lot smoother than a lot of the wooden needles, and the cord on these is a little more flexible than some circular needles, but it's still a little bit stiff. This is a Boy circular needle, and the tips are pretty nice and smooth, but the cord is really stiff. I mean, I can really not bend it at all. If I bent it too much, it would probably break. These were the first pair of circulars that I ever got, and I really didn't know how bad this cable was until I used a needle with a more flexible cable. And these are fine for beginners. They can even be fine if you don't mind a stiff cable, but for me it's just really hard to work with the yarn and a cable that is this stiff. But again, it's all personal choice. I mean, just because they're cheaper and have a less flexible cable doesn't mean that they're bad needles. So don't discount them just because of that. You should try them and see if you like them. These are Addi Turbo needles. These have the gold cord on them, which is pretty flexible. And these are nickel plated needles. They're really nice and smooth. They have smooth joins. On occasion, depending on what kind of yarn I use, it might snag a little bit, but for the most part these are really smooth joins, and you shouldn't have to worry too much about your yarn getting snagged on them. So those are nice. And then here are just a few more Addi Turbo needles. You can see here, this one's pretty small. This is a 9-inch needle, It's a little awkward to work with this. I used this for the sleeve of a sweater, and I thought it was easier to get my stitches around something smaller as opposed to the 16-inch needle. But these have a really flexible blue cord. They're really nice to work with. Here's another Addi Turbo needle, again with the very flexible cord. I mean, you can pretty much do anything with it and it's not going to break. It's a lot easier to work with a flexible cable, in my opinion. But that is circular needles. And last but not least are the interchangeable sets. There are a lot of different interchangeable sets. I have the Addi Clicks, as I'm sure a lot of you may know. This is the new long tip lace set. There's also a regular lace set. The tips are a little bit shorter on this set. And then there is the good old standard Addi Click set. And yes, I keep them in the box all the time. Let me just open this up here and show you. So these are the long tip lace needles. And when you get your set, it has a nice case to carry everything. You get a needle gauge in this little pocket, and then all of your cords are in here. And here are your different needles. You can see I have a set missing. And then there's a little extender down here. Let me just open up the regular lace set just to show you the difference in the tip length. Now the regular lace needles come in this brown case with a zipper back. This is where all of your cords are. And you get your needle gauge with this as well. So here is a tip from the regular lace set. And here's a tip from the new set. So you can see there's a pretty significant difference in the length of the tips. And it's just personal choice. Some people prefer a longer tip on their needles, some prefer a short tip. I really don't have a preference. I just grab whatever and go. And the points on the lace needles are a bit sharper than the regular set. Let me just show you that real quick. Okay, this is in a black case. And it opens up just like the other ones. And you have your little, whoops, there's my pin. You have your little pouch to keep your needle gauge in. And as you can see, most of them are missing from here. They are in various projects lying here and there. But these are long tips on the regular click set, and the tips are more blunt than the lace needles. So you can get sets by Denise. Boy makes interchangeable sets as well. There are many different ones out there. There are some links on the blog for you if you want to check them out. So that is interchangeable needles. And it really is a wise investment to get an interchangeable set. Some are more expensive than others, so don't think that you can't own an interchangeable set. If you are a serious knitter, I do recommend that you purchase an interchangeable set of needles, just because you have all of your needles right here, you have all your different cord lengths. You can use the circular needles for flat and round knitting. And if you were to buy all of these different sizes and all of the different cord lengths, it would cost a lot more money than just purchasing the set like this. So that is it for knitting needles.